The 4-1 Bucs host the 4-1 San Francisco 49ers in an NFC clash with potential playoff implications later on this season. Bucs are getting healthier, not quite where we want them to be, but they may be catching the 49ers at the right time. They certainly are limping into this one. We're going to break that down and much more on this week's game preview.
I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Those up with the heads in the shot. 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And then the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast, live on YouTube today. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish. We have got a lot to cover this week as we are headed into Week 6 of the NFL season. This is that time of year where you start to, I don't know, it feels like a snowball effect on the NFL season because, you know, it felt like 2 weeks ago we were just talking about how grateful we were for the preseason to be over. Here we are, football's back, and today we are talking about potential playoff implications and really a game that for Tampa Bay, I don't look at this as something they have to overcome because, you know, they've overcome a lot so far this season, but they have certainly had their fair share of issues with this 49ers team the last 4 years that they have played, and I think they skipped a year and played the year before that as well. So these two teams very much familiar with each other at this part of the process. Evan, how you doing, my friend?
Doing pretty good, and like you said, it's crazy that it's Week 6 already. If you were playing 16 games, you would already have a quarter of the season done, right? You'd already have like the first quarter of the season already done. So hard to believe that we're getting there. It's obviously, you know, almost mid-October at this point, and you're right. It seems like just a couple days ago maybe we were talking about how, oh, you know, it's, you know, preseason's nice, but it gets old pretty quickly, and, you know, we're sort of sick of this and everything, and here we are now. So you're talking about a game with potential playoff implications, and obviously, sure, like the Bucs lose, they're not going to miss the playoffs. They win, they're not going to automatically make the playoffs. But this could be down the line, right? A Week 6 game could end up just like, unfortunately for the Bucs, you know, it would hurt them in that. But a Week 4 game, right, against the Philadelphia Eagles could impact potential playoff seeding down the line. So those tiebreakers are real, right? And the first one is going to be that head-to-head tiebreaker. So this is going to be pretty important, you know, these next 2 weeks, right? With the Lions and the Niners, you know, you got some important games here in the NFC. So, and you're right, it is a team that Tampa Bay has really struggled with, not just even recently, but like historically. Like, I look at that now, like San Francisco leads the series all time 21-7.
Oof.
The Bucs do not beat the 49ers. They have not beaten the 49ers since 2018. They've lost their last 4. And honestly, like, the games haven't exactly been that close. Like, San Francisco beat them 31-17 in 2019, 35-7 in 2022, 27-14 in 2023, 23-20 last year. But if you remember, Jake Moody missed, I think, 3 field goals in that game. So that could have been, and I think he obviously nailed the game winner, of course, as that's how it goes. But that could have been even worse. So the Bucs really haven't been that competitive against this Niners team. But, you know, the Bucs also, we talk about those teams, right? And I feel like every single one of those teams I mentioned, 2019, 22, 23, and 24, none of those teams have been quite as good as this one. So the Bucs didn't play them in 2020, and they didn't play them in 2021. So they avoided them there. So I don't think the 49ers have seen this version of this Bucs team. So maybe they can pull it out.
Yeah, and I think the 49ers are, you know, the epitome of a team who is able to make do with the players that they have. Even when they face injuries, they're still a solid team. You know, they're a system built on consistency. And I think as of right now, when you look at who they have at quarterback, Brock Purdy versus Mac Jones. Mac Jones has kind of stepped up and played better than Brock Purdy so far this season. So I think that's something to monitor. The Bucs have faced efficient quarterbacks so far this season, just guys who can get the ball out of their hands quickly, and that is certainly Mac Jones. He has been able to do that, and he was able to do that last week against the Rams. Took his fair share of hits in that game, but he was certainly able to do it. Before we dive deeper into Bucs Niners, though, we talk a lot about Baker Mayfield on this show, and I'll be damned if there is MVP chatter and we're not going to partake. Baker Mayfield, way too early, right? I mean, we're only 5 games into the season, but it's a full quarter of what is a 17-game season now, at least regular season in the NFL. And if you have to look at this first quarter of the season, Evan, I don't think there's been a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. Sure, you could say Josh Allen, but you look at Kansas City and, you know, the NFL darling Pat Mahomes and the situation they're in, they're going to be fine, I think, but they're also kind of just floating right now. Baltimore is in arguably a worse spot than Tampa right now, not only record-wise, but injury-wise. They have got some heavy hitters that are going to be out. Lamar is going to be missing some time. It seems like Baker's been that guy. And I know that we've said it enough on the show, so we don't really have to rehash the whole thing, but we certainly can if you so choose. I think that this is fun, hooking a wagon to not only Baker Mayfield MVP, but the hype train behind Emeka Egbuka, Rookie of the Year. He's been a huge part of that as well. With everything being said, we look at the definition of MVP, and I see no better player than Baker Mayfield these first 5 weeks.
I tend to agree. I think the only one you could maybe make an argument for is Josh Allen. That would be the one where you could maybe, make that argument. And look, Josh Allen, I think Josh Allen's probably the best quarterback in the NFL, like overall. But like in terms of who has been like the MVP, like most valuable player, to their team, yeah, it probably is Baker Mayfield. You look at a lot of the things that he's done, stats wise, but also just like a belief, right? Like they've had these crazy comeback, and these fourth quarter last minute drives and stuff like that. That all comes down to a belief, right? And a mentality. And a lot of times they say, well, a team takes on the personality of their head coach, right? I think this team has taken on the personality of their quarterback, and that's Baker Mayfield, right? It's never give up. Sometimes it burns you, right? Just like in the Eagles game, but you live with that, right? You live with that to get the other stuff, because that's just how he's gonna play. That's him. So yeah, I think through 5 weeks, and again, like you mentioned, there's 5 weeks, There's a lot of football left. We got 12 games left. Like, there is a lot of football left to be played. A lot can happen in 12 football games. So, not going to anoint him, early, but I do think it's kind of crazy. Like, and I quote tweet it. So, follow me on Twitter at EvanNFL. We'll plug that later, but I figured I'd plug it again. FanDuel had posted like their MVP ladder thing, and it's not odds. It's just like an opinion, and I don't know whose opinion it is.
It's a bad one.
But they have Josh Allen 1. Okay, if you want to keep Josh Allen at number 1, whatever, right? Like, fine. Then they have Patrick Mahomes at 2, and I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes doesn't deserve to be on the list, but they have Baker Mayfield at 3. What has Patrick Mahomes done that Baker Mayfield hasn't? Well, here's the comparison. Baker Mayfield has a better record, which, again, you can argue, right, whether wins are a QB stat or not. Like, I know it's an argument as old as time. But he has a better completion percentage than Patrick Mahomes. He has more passing yards than Patrick Mahomes. More passing yards per game. More passing touchdowns. He has fewer interceptions. He has a higher quarterback rating. All that. More than Patrick Mahomes. So, and like I said, his team has a better record than Patrick Mahomes' team. So that matters too, right? I think I mentioned that last week about, like, even if Lamar came back and played really well, like, he'd have a tough time winning it because your team needs to be good. Like, you're not really going to see an MVP on a team that went 7-10. Like, you're not going to see that nowadays. So your team needs to win a lot of football games, and the Ravens they have it worse. Bucs fans think they got it bad with the injuries. Look at the Ravens the inactive list from last week. just go back and look at it. I think it was Lamar Jackson, Kyle Hamilton, Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey. Like that is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Lamar's basically out. So this could come down, to Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. Look, and they're squaring off, in November. That'll be a fun one to watch. But through 5 weeks, I mean, I tend to agree that I think right now, he's the front runner, even though there is a lot to be said, I guess.
Yeah.
Until January.
Yeah. And a win for the Bucs on Sunday would push them to a 5-1 record. And again, we talk more about the importance of this win and setting up potential playoff implications. These are two NFC teams that are sitting at 4-1 outside of San Francisco and Tampa Bay. Philadelphia is 4-1. The Lions are 4-1. The Bucs have the Lions on primetime in 2 weeks. A week and a half, I guess, is the way you could put it, as of the recording of this episode. So they have 2 character-building games here as you kind of count down the weeks to the bye week. You have New Orleans after that. So, I mean, we talk about NFC implications. That is certainly involving the NFC South and another division opponent for the Bucs. That is a must-win game. Truthfully, out of all 3 of these, I'd like them to win that one the most. But with that being said, the Bucs have a chance to establish themselves as one of the top teams in the NFC here with San Francisco. They come into this game fairly beat up, but we talk about their getting healthier. Jamel Dean was back at practice. Tristan Wirfs getting more comfortable on that offensive line. Chris Godwin, I wanted to ask you about Chris Godwin, and I wanted to ask you about some other guys here still on the injury report. Limping around at the end of last week's game, as far as we know, did not practice today.
No, he did not.
Do you think he's going to play?
It's tough to say without, looking at the Friday. Obviously, if he doesn't practice on Friday, Bulls will probably rule him out on Friday.
It was a very specific...
Yeah, it's a fibula.
Injury, by the way, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's 50-50. I think they want him out there, but also, they're not going to rush the guy, right? I think they want him out there, but obviously, it's going to be tough sledding, against San Francisco's defense if Chris Godwin's down as well, because, Bucky Irving's not expected to be back. Mike Evans still not expected to be back. Probably, I would say, maybe for both those guys, maybe next week against Detroit, right? I would think, I'd be surprised if Evans doesn't play next week against Detroit. So I expect him to come back then. Bucky, we'll have to wait and see. But, as far as Chris goes, I think it's 50-50. You're gonna have to wait and see on Friday. I think that's big. If he's limited, I feel pretty good about his chances of playing. But if he can't practice, which I don't think the Bucs are gonna rush him, I don't think they're gonna force the issue. If he can't practice, he can't practice, and I don't think he's gonna play. So really, it comes down to that, right? If he's limited, I think he'll play. If he doesn't practice at all, I don't think he's going to.
And Jamel Dean, Christian Izien returned to practice this week after missing some action last week. It's good to see some reinforcements here in the secondary. You get to hopefully put some guys back in some normal feeling positions, because very quickly that secondary felt thin headed into the game last week against Seattle. So to get Jamel Dean and Christian Izien back, Jamel Dean, a guy who, regardless of the slander, has production this year, does have that big pick six a couple of weeks ago and was a game-winning play at the end of the day. So he's battling a hip injury but was limited as of Wednesday. On track to play, hopefully. Bucky Irving is kind of a weird situation because I don't think we've talked about it to this degree, at least on this show. At first, what was a lower body, leg, knee kind of ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken, is now that plus a shoulder injury. And what we were initially told was week to week is now becoming, maybe 2 to 3 to 4 week thing. They didn't put him on IR, so he avoids a stint. They believe he will be back no later than a month. But Bucky seemingly taking this injury hard on Instagram as well. Your thoughts on Bucky Irving here? And honestly, Rachaad White, as we head into this matchup with San Francisco. He had a solid game last week, even if the box score didn't necessarily blow you away.
No, he did. And if he can repeat that, I think the Bucs are in good shape. Yeah, again, I don't think the Bucs want to rush Bucky. We'll see. Apparently, the shoulder is something to be a little bit more concerned about. Apparently, it was something that sort of popped up, and he let the team know about it and everything, and maybe that's a little bit more serious. So, sort of essentially definitely ruled him out for this week's game. I mean, not officially, but pretty much ruled him out for this week's game, and then we'll see about Detroit. It's interesting with the bye week coming up, though, right? Because you play San Francisco this week, then Detroit, then New Orleans, and then it's your bye week. So you have to sort of measure, okay, are these guys like 100% healthy, or are they like 70% healthy and we're going to try and throw them out there? Or is it worth it to just say, let's just, he's not playing against San Francisco. Let's get him through the next two games versus Detroit and New Orleans bye week, and then he can come back really good to go, right, for the rest of the year. That's something I think they're going to be wrestling with a little bit. But I mean, look, Rashad White, like you said, was exactly what they needed to have, right, on Sunday. Good in the passing game, some solid runs, nothing to blow you away, but did his job, right? And I think if he's able to do that again this coming week, I think it's a good sign. So I think having Rashad White there helps them not potentially rush Bucky Irving back to the lineup as well. So you don't feel like, oh my God, like this is a disaster. We got to get this guy in. Like, no, like White can hold it down for now. Sean Tucker, is capable of having some moments as well. So, yeah, I don't think they're gonna rush him. Like I said, he's out essentially this week for sure. We'll see about next week. Really depends on, I guess, that shoulder, because it seems like I said, it seems like that shoulder is more so of the issue right now than what was previously reported, which was that ankle kind of.
Another injury here for the Bucs, and this one feels ominous. I don't know if it's just because we're getting closer to Halloween, so things get a little bit more spooky, if you will. People like to really dress it up, but Luke Goedeke, there is a lot of question marks around the Buccaneers' right tackle and his return. I think for an offensive lineman, for Luke Goedeke, for a guy who's been injured as many games as he has now, it was almost like no news is good news, I guess. And then the first substantial update you get is the Bucs aren't setting a specific timetable for his return, but they are hopeful he'll play again this season. That was not the impression we were given when he first went down. We were first given the impression that this was maybe a 3, 4, 5 weeks max, if you want to push it, kind of thing. And I know the Bucs are sitting at 4-1, but now they're hopeful he's going to play this season. Is this like? This is like, what the hell is going on? Did he hurry back from something that is now a worse issue? Is it just worse than initially reported? I mean, people are pointing fingers at everyone, demanding answers. I don't think we'll ever truly get the answers, but the fact of the matter is, we're going to have to watch Charlie Heck at right tackle for at least another month, the way that this update sounds to me.
Yeah, we'll see. Then again, I think that might be somewhere with the bye week. Maybe they look at like 3 more games and then see how he's doing. It is weird though, right? Because it was like, all right, so he gets hurt, and you're like, oh, is he gonna play week 2? Is he gonna play week 2? Oh, he is gonna play. Okay, cool. He's in there. Gets hurt in that game. Okay, and then you're like, all right, well, he's gonna go on IR, but like pretty standard IR stint, right? Like it'll be 4 games, maybe misses 5, but like he'll be out, right? But he avoided anything major or anything, and that was coming off the news, Cody Malk, being out for the year. So you're like, all right, well, Malk, that sucks, but dodged a bullet with Goedeke there. And then you sort of didn't hear anything. Like when a player's on IR, like whatever, like you're not gonna hear much. So you didn't hear anything, but now, like around week 6, maybe potentially like next week he could be coming back basically. And the first thing you've heard, right, is from like Greg Allman basically about how like, yeah, Bucs are like optimistic about that it's not a season-ending injury. And you're like, where did that come from? Like when did the word season ending show up? Like it was like it wasn't like, it would be different if after the week 2 game they were like, yeah, it's 50-50, and you're like, oh man, all right, well they're gonna put him on IR and just wait and see. No, like it seemed very confident that like this was just a standard, like he's gonna miss some time, but like he avoided anything major that would keep him out really long. And now you're like, oh yeah, it's like a coin flip. like what do you mean? So I think it definitely means that obviously Charlie Heck is starting against San Francisco. Charlie Heck's probably starting against Detroit. And then I think the first realistic date is that New Orleans one. But with the bye week the very next week, that's where, again, I do wonder if the Bucs say, try and make it through, especially since New Orleans is probably a team you should beat. And then the bye week, and then hopefully he's good to go, right? That's what? I mean, that's almost 8 weeks, right? Since Goedeke suffered the injury. So hopefully that's what's sort of happening here. And not the worst case scenario, which is like they're still trying to find out answers, and it turns out that he's actually not coming back, and like this is your offensive line, right? Look, and the Bucs offensive line played really well last Sunday against Seattle. Like they're one of the reasons that they won that game, right? Baker Mayfield doesn't have the game that he does if he doesn't have the time in the pocket that he does. So they played really well, but also like you're not going to be able to do that week in and week out, right? There's going to be times where there's going to be breakdowns, and not having Luke Goedeke in your starting lineup makes your offensive line worse. So hopefully he can get back here soon. But yeah, it was a little bit of a weird one that just sort of came out of nowhere.
Now, you may or may not have mentioned the New Orleans Saints in that bit there, and I'm going to tell you, the NFC South can be called a lot of things by a lot of people. People say it is the best division. They say it's the worst division. They say it's an easy division. I'll tell you this, it is a squirrely division because, yeah, we can very quickly discount everybody else in the NFC South right now. I think through 5 weeks of football, a lot of things have been established. And, yeah, there's ebbs and flows of a season, so things are going to change. But they still look like teams that could just beat the Bucs for any given reason. I don't know what it is, man, but I'm never going to be quick to discount. The Saints could be the worst team in the league. They could go 0-17. Or I'm sorry, they could go 0-16 because the one win they would have would be something they stole against Tampa Bay. That's the feeling I always get against those teams. So
yeah, I mean, look, it is divisional matchups, right? And like and I understand. Look, the Panthers blew the Falcons out and stuff, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Like it does, the Bucs blew the Panthers out last year one game, right? The Bucs dropped 55 or whatever on the Saints, in New Orleans last year. It happens, but those divisional games are gonna be tight, because it's one, they mean more, right? It's more, rivalries or standings wise, right? Like you got to win if you don't win your division games, you basically have no shot at winning your division. Like if you go 0-6 in the division, you're probably not winning that division. So yeah, those games are almost twice as important, and like those teams see you twice a year, like they know you quite well. So yeah, I mean the Bucs should win though, right? Like those are games that the Bucs good teams find ways to win those games. But I mean, we just look at I understand New England's a better team than the Saints are, but New England just went into Buffalo and beat the Bills. Like that's a divisional game. Who expected New England to do that? So it happens. So yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, they've got some, obviously, a lot of NFC opponents here in the early going.
Yeah, let's talk about their NFC opponent this week, which honestly feels like a division game at this point because, as we mentioned at the top of the show, these teams have played each other plenty over the last 6-7 years here.
Well, really quick, I did want to mention one more thing about injuries.
Yep.
Really quick. Zion McCollum was in a sling, I guess, on Wednesday. Not great, right?
Not great.
Bucs are hopeful to get Jamel Dean back. It sounds like Benjamin Morrison probably more so next week. It doesn't sound like he's close, or as close as Dean, I should say, to returning. So if they can get Dean back, that would be a helpful thing. But McCollum potentially being out, hopefully that's just a precaution. He was just in it, just to sort of keep his arm upright or not move it a certain way. But yeah, not a great sign. But we'll have to wait and see on that.
Bucs are hopeful to get Jamel Dean back. They're hopeful.
Bucs are hopeful to have a football team.
Luke Goedeke.
They're hopeful.
We're loading up on hopium this week, my friend, and we're gonna take it into this week. So I want to open up, talk about this Buccaneers defense versus a 49ers offense, because we can talk all day about the injury report and the shortcomings that they're going to have, the lack of troops, if you will, especially in the pass game. But I want to bring out an interesting stat, because one of the biggest things that's going to be highlighted this week is the Buccaneers pass rush. Larry Foote actually just talked to the media a couple of hours ago. He said they need more production specifically from Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick, which, I mean, if you've been listening to us or any other Buccaneers podcast on the planet, they have been telling you that, yes, the Buccaneers need some more performance from this pass rush, specifically that four-man pressure up front. Let me just throw a stat at you really quickly, though, and this isn't going to change hearts, this isn't going to change minds, because at the end of the day, sacks are production, and I think most people could argue, at least situationally, the Bucs need more sacks. Maybe their total looks good, but when you think about when those sacks are coming into play, there's only a handful of them this year that have changed games. But here is a stat. This is from Josh Capo on Twitter here. At what rate have the Bucs faced a quick throw under 2.5 seconds, and how does that compare to the rest of the NFL? And it says the Bucs have faced quick throws, which is under 2.5 seconds, on 60.63% of opposing pass attempts this season, ranking second highest in the NFL, only behind the Houston Texans at 63.4%. And I think Houston only has 2 more sacks than Tampa at this point in the season. This rate is significantly higher than the NFL average of 53.91%, with opponents completing 97 quick throws against the Bucs out of a total 160 total pass attempts, with measured throw times through Week 5 of the 2025 season. For context, this is the important part, really. The league distribution ranges from the Texans at the top with 63.4 to the Green Bay Packers at the bottom at 41.94%. The Bucs are among a group of teams facing quick throws at an elevated rate, which could indicate opponents are specifically game planning to get the ball out quickly against a Tampa Bay defense. No kidding. We've talked about it week in and week out on these game preview shows here, Evan. It's not like they are facing the most explosive quarterbacks in the world here. They are just facing what we will classify as buck killers. You don't need to be a Lamar Jackson or a Pat Mahomes to beat this defense. You just have to get the ball out of your hands quickly. And a lot of these quarterbacks who don't turn the ball over are having huge days against this Buccaneers defense. What are your thoughts on that pass rush statistic there, and honestly, Mac Jones coming into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm like, I feel like the Bucs defense has actually been good this year.
I do too. I do think most people could argue about the pass rush, though.
Yeah, but at the same time, also like, those numbers say a lot, right? Like, what are you supposed to do when a quarterback's getting the ball out under 2.5 seconds? Like,
Right.
how is any pass rusher? They could trade for Max Crosby tomorrow. And if the opposing team is just going to be like, all right, we are going to get this ball out lightning fast, and we're not really going to push anything downfield. We're just going to take our 4 or 5 yards apiece, and that's going to be that. Well, Max Crosby isn't going to do much, because he didn't have time to do anything. So I do agree that the Bucs pass rush needs to be, specifically their 4-man pass rush, because like their pressure rates still are not bad. Like their pressure rates as a defense are not that bad. And their sack rates are about average or so. There's a couple of good teams in the NFL that have less sacks than the Buccaneers. The Eagles have less sacks. I think the Bills have less sacks. Both those teams have the same exact record as the Bucs. And both are perceived very differently. I understand the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. That gets you some extra credit, but they're both perceived differently. So I do think the Bucs 4-man pass rush needs to be better, but I also think it's sometimes situational stuff. And unfortunately, you're probably looking at another week where, the ball is going to probably come out pretty quickly, right? I don't think that the 49ers are going to let Mac Jones hold on to the ball that quickly, especially in, Kyle Shanahan, more of a West Coast style system. And really, it's a system that is given Todd Bowles' defense fits anyway. So I do think that, unfortunately, you're going to see a lot more of that. Mac Jones' stats from this season so far have been really good. He's thrown 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, passer rating 99.1. He has 905 yards against New Orleans. He threw 279, 3 touchdowns, no picks. His last game against the Rams, he threw 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So he's also playing really well, right? So, we could talk about buck killers and stuff like that. I thought they did a pretty good job against CJ Stroud. Penix had a couple, but not a ton. Tyrod, like that was not really. Jalen Hurts was okay, but like through the air didn't really kill him. It was mostly with his legs. Like that's just keeping contained. And then Sam Darnold, like Sam Darnold was the first one I thought like carved up the Bucs defense. And Sam Darnold like is pretty good, right? Like I know the stigma around Sam Darnold is like, oh, like seeing ghosts, like the dude sucks, but like he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL over the past 2 seasons. So like I do feel that like the pass rush could be and should be better. It needs to be better, right? If they want to go, to the NFC Championship game or go to a Super Bowl, like it needs to be better, sure. But at the same time, I also think there are bigger problems. I think on this defense, more so than the 4-man pass rush. I'm not concerned with them as much.
Well, you kind of alluded to the bigger problems here on defense, and that's exactly what I wanted to bring up next. Targeting Christian McCaffrey. This is a major tool for San Francisco. He's one of the most dynamic players in the NFL. The stuff he's just able to do compared to other backs, even with the injuries he's faced, like he's still that guy. And he's a guy that has given the Bucs some problems in the past. This has been talked about. I've read it. I've heard it said. We're going to talk about it now. I don't know if it's a winning formula to rely on Levante David and Servassier Dennis to cover Christian McCaffrey. I am very curious to see what Todd Bowles draws up this week, for Christian McCaffrey. And again, a 49ers offense that is the definition of just getting it done with what you have. And even if you have a 80% Christian McCaffrey, that's still a lot better than other backfields in the NFL. So what do you see here with this Bucs defense and 49ers offense, a scheme really that just has a history of getting the best of Todd Bowles?
Yeah, putting Servassier Dennis on Christian McCaffrey, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. See if it pays off for him. Yeah, that would be something. And they're gonna do it too, at least once. You know that. Probably a touchdown, but they're gonna do it. Look, I mean, Christian McCaffrey's really good, right? And the Bucs know him well, right? Just from obviously they played San Francisco multiple times, but he was in the division not so long ago, right? So the Bucs have seen, and Todd Bowles has seen plenty of him. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a challenge, right? I mean, Bijan Robinson's one heck of a back. The Bucs did a good job of just stopping the run there, but he hurt him in the passing game. Well, Christian McCaffrey is sort of like that, where he can do both, right? And so I would argue sometimes he's actually more dangerous in the passing game than he is the run game. So sometimes he acts like another, wideout out there. So that'll be, and that's I think one of the X factors in this game, right? Like I think if they're able to shut down Christian McCaffrey, you look at, because we talk about the Bucs injury report. Well, the 49ers injury report from Wednesday at least was actually longer than Tampa Bay's. The 49ers injury report was a long one, and they're missing a lot of dudes, right? I believe I know Ricky Pearsall is not it's not officially out, but he is not expected to play. I believe, who else here? Juwan Jennings is not expected to play, I don't believe. So that's 2 receivers right there. Those guys are, they're valuable pieces, right? They don't have Deebo Samuel anymore. I don't, Brandon Ayuk is still, I believe he's not playing right now, right? He's still hurt from the ACL. So, they're hurting, right? George Kittle missing this game as well. George Kittle's somebody who has given the Bucs fits. So when you look at it, I think the 49ers are going to be relying on Christian McCaffrey a good bit on Sunday. And the Bucs' number one priority has got to be to slow him down, because you can't just let that guy beat you. If somebody else beats you, kudos to him. Kyle Shanahan, which I'm sure, he's done really well against Todd Bowles. I'm sure he has something else up his sleeve other than just feed the ball to McCaffrey 50 times. But you got to let somebody else beat you. You got to let some other way. You can't just let McCaffrey slice and dice you and just go up and down the field, and have like 100 receiving yards, 100 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like you can't have that. So, and like the Bucs' run defense has been good besides last week, right? Like last week, I actually thought Seattle should have been trying to run the ball a little bit more than they were. They were having like success with it. So I'm curious to see how that run defense looks this week. But more curious to see how the linebackers, the safeties, look in coverage against a guy like CMC.
Yeah, and one of the guys they're going to be trying to lock down in coverage, who's been a big contributor for San Francisco these last couple of weeks. They haven't had George Kittle. He's up there on the injury report, one of the bigger names on there. But Jake Tonges? I don't know exactly how you say his last name. But he has, honestly, the makings of a guy who is just going to consistently get open. Attacking the middle of the field. I thought A.J. Barner for Seattle had a decent week. He had that touchdown against Levante David, which was very tough to watch. And hopefully nothing like that happens again this week. But that's going to be another matchup to watch out for. I'm curious to see what Bulls can draw up for him. And truthfully, how involved they can get some of these defensive backs. Who's a Jacob Parrish going to be, covering for most of the game, right? Is that going to be a more viable option against a Christian McCaffrey than either of the guys that we had mentioned in Levante David or Servassier Dennis? Christian Izien, if he's getting reps in this game, that could be a better matchup, I think. I think he's got a little more muscle mass, a little bit more to him than Jacob Parrish. With no disrespect to the rookie, he's been playing great. But those are some matchups that I'm curious to see. Tyke Smith expected to be in the lineup as well, so we will watch that. But this Buccaneers offense, my friend, there is a lot more potential damage that can be done, I believe, from this 49ers defense. They still have a talented group. They still have the best linebacker in the game, I think, right now in Fred Warner. And they have had quite a few guys step up over the last 3-4 weeks for them as the injuries continue to pile up here. When you look at matchups for this Buccaneers offense, I know we talk about Baker Mayfield being on an MVP pace. He says he doesn't buy into it. His quote was, "It's rat poison this time of year." And that's a good mindset to have. I like that from my starting quarterback. The last time this Bucs offense played San Francisco, they didn't have a Emeka Egbuka. Some of the other guys in the wide receiver room and other pass catchers really starting to get active and get involved here. But when you look at this matchup, do you think it's going to be tough sledding for the Bucs moving the football this week like it has been in years past?
I think it could be. And look, last year they didn't have a Mecca, but like they didn't have Mike Evans, they didn't have Chris Godwin, like they didn't have these guys. So
I think their leading receiver that game was Ryan Miller.
Nice,
yeah.
But like I said, that was only a close game because the 49ers kind of made it a close game because Jake Moody the 49ers kept driving the ball down the field and then Jake Moody just could not make field goals. So really kept the Bucs in it. I want to say yeah, but like the Godwin thing sort of scares me. It kind of feels like he was sort of getting a little bit of a rhythm, right? Looked a little bit better against Seattle than he did against Philly. I was like, all right, well, week after week, might get a little bit more into it. Was actually going to take him, a little bit of a spoiler, I was going to say Chris Godwin anytime touchdown this week for betting the Bucs. Don't know if that's going to be possible. But we'll wait and see. When you look at this 49ers defense, though, like the names, and they used to have a lot of big names, right? And I'm not saying that they don't have big names now, but like obviously Nick Bosa out for the season, big loss. Like you look at these names, and there's nothing that like, and they're good players, but like their secondary, Renardo Green, Diamandor Lenore, Upton Stout, Jason Pinnock, like I don't know, man. Like Fred Warner's still there, like you said. I think might be the best linebacker in the NFL right now. Like he's elite, so like I get that. And like they have some other dudes, but they don't really have those stars, right? Like I think Matt Stafford just threw like almost 400 yards against them. Yeah, he threw for 389. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 111 passer rating. So, like, you can move the ball against this 49ers defense. It's not like some stout unit that is hard to move the ball against. So, like I said, Stafford, and 400-yard passing games these days are actually rare, right? Because I saw a lot of people were complaining about it this year, like, oh, the quarterbacks, oh, we used to live in a different era and stuff like that. And now you don't even see guys getting 300 yards anymore. Jalen Hurts, whatever. I think the stuff around Jalen Hurts is dumb, but like Jalen Hurts wins and he throws for 140 yards. Like what, so that for Stafford to throw for that much, that's pretty rare, And San Francisco, like I said, their defense hasn't been like insane. So to answer that, like, yeah, they can, but not having Chris Godwin does concern me a little bit because we've seen what this offense looks like when they just simply don't have the dudes available. And it can be ugly. And then I worry about, like, okay, San Francisco's defense is maybe shutting down the Bucs because the Bucs really can't get anything going early. San Francisco's offense maybe goes down, puts up 10 points, 10-0. Then all of a sudden you're not playing the game you want to play, right? You got to go off script a little bit more. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to throw the ball a little bit more. So that's what worries me in this game. Sort of like the Philly game, right? It sort of gets away from you because you can't establish that on offense early enough. So that would be the one thing that would concern me.
I think honestly, if the Bucs were to establish a similar pace to what they had last week against Seattle, the fact that they were moving the ball as efficiently as they were, but on top of that, it was like I think the most chunk plays we've probably seen from Baker. When we talk about attacking downfield, right? It felt like they were attacking further down the field. You had more plays being picked up for first downs. I think it was like 50 something plus first downs between those two teams last week. It was very efficient for both offenses here. San Francisco, their defense tied for 6th in scoring defense at 19.6, 15th in total defense, 315.6 yards allowed per game. I think if the Bucs can establish a fast pace, I know that the Niners can certainly sling it around. I mean, again, Mac Jones, you look at his box score last week, he certainly was able to throw the ball around and keep up.
He's been able to do it every week.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious if this is going to be a vastly different game than what we have felt with these last San Francisco games. Because, again, I kind of alluded to it when we talked about this San Francisco defense. I know they haven't completely shut teams down this season, but it just feels like they shut down the Bucs. It always ends up being one of the more frustrating offensive performances of the season because it's like pulling teeth to get those first downs. And I think if you come out, you start quick, get the ball out of Baker's hands quickly, and just establish a confidence in the pass game, I'm curious what kind of game that this could honestly turn into here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important, right? I think they talked about last week, right? Starting fast in Seattle, and they did kind of. They started fast, moved the ball, couldn't get in the end zone, right? Settled for 3 in their first 2 offensive drives. But, and then I think it helped, though, right? Because this offense has started slow. You saw it in Atlanta. You saw it against Houston. You saw it, like against the Jets. The offense kind of couldn't get out of their own way with the penalties and whatnot. But, they have started a little bit slow, right? Like their first quarter point differentials hasn't been great. So I think they're looking for that again this week to start fast. Maybe, put the ball in the end zone in the opening drive this time, right? So I think that's something that they're going to be looking to do, and look, I understand you're always looking to do that, right? But I think it's going to be a bigger point of emphasis this week because, again, I think they know they can't fall behind, like, they can't fall behind 10 or like 14-0, like, because then like San Francisco is just going to be able to play the exact type of game they want to play. And San Francisco is a good football team. Like, I think San Francisco is probably better than Seattle, especially when San Francisco is obviously I know Bosa's not coming back this season, but like when like Kittle comes back, and if Ayuk gets back and Jennings in the lineup, Pearsall's in the lineup, like when those guys are back, like I think San Francisco is probably better than Seattle. So like this is probably gonna be like the second best team you played all year so far, right? I think San Francisco is a good football team. They just went to LA and beat the Rams. I think the Rams are really good. So it's not going to be easy. And I think just if you go down, I think you're going to see a lot like the Philly game. It's just you're you're trying to dig yourself out of a hole, and you can do that against bad or average teams, but you can't do that against good teams. And the Bucs, their one loss is mostly because they did that, and they couldn't call themselves out. So starting fast and being on schedule is going to be pretty important.
Yeah, and that one interception, the mistake that can be looked at against the Eagles is maybe the nail in the coffin there for Tampa. That's the one interception that Baker Mayfield has all season. So that's going to be a huge theme coming into this game, because when you look back to that game in 2024, Baker had 3 fumbles. The Bucs recovered 2 of them. Bucky Irving landed on 1 of them. So I don't think there was any monumental fumbles, but they were certainly drive killers. Let me not underestimate the effect of turnovers here. On top of that, your leading receivers last year for Tampa Bay versus San Francisco. I had to look this up because I was curious after throwing the Ryan Miller thing out there. So Ryan Miller was their leading receiver. He was not their leading pass catcher, if you want to get technical.
Okay.
So
Rachaad White was their leading pass catcher?
Rachaad White was their leading pass catcher with 6 receptions for 39 yards. Right behind him is a guy that I was going to pivot to next. Cade Otton, 5 receptions for 35 yards. Bucky Irving had 3 catches for 14. Ryan Miller had 1 for 11. Raheem Jarrett had 2 for 10. So your leading receiver had 39 yards and a touchdown in Rachaad White. I would hope to God that after everything we've talked about and everything we've seen so far this season, that this Bucs offense can be a little more efficient than that in this matchup against San Francisco. They still have some dogs on defense, but, I mean, again, the Bucs have Emeka Egbuka. Sterling Shepard had 1 catch for 7 yards last year. I think he's playing well enough this season that we'll see him more. Hopefully. He's been more than serviceable. Had that game-tying touchdown last year for Tampa Bay. Came up huge on that play. Huge throw from Baker. I just I don't know. I get a weird feeling about the tools the Buccaneers have this year compared to last year.
Yeah, I mean, so Baker Mayfield in his career against the 49ers is 0-4.
Oof.
0-2 as a Buck. Played them. This is the 3rd straight year they're playing them. He has 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So didn't have any interceptions in the last matchup. Like you mentioned, though, had the 3 fumbles. Can't have that. And then had 1 interception, 1 touchdown, 1 interception in the first matchup in 2023. So, yeah, I mean, look, you read them off, and the Bucs' top pass catcher from last year was a running back. Their second highest pass catcher was a tight end.
Oh, yeah.
That can't really happen, right? But the scary part is that when you look at the injury report, it very well could, because if Chris Godwin can't go, and Emeka Egbuka, all the focus is going to be on Emeka Egbuka now. The 49ers defense is going to be looking to stop Emeka Egbuka.
I mean, they were already. I think even if Chris Godwin plays, all eyes are
but
on.
it becomes much easier to do if Chris Godwin's not out there. So you could be looking at a game where it might have to be Rachaad White and Cade Otton and Sterling Shepard. Maybe not like a Ryan Miller, but like a Tez Johnson, right? Stepped up last week. You might need a Tez Johnson to step up again this week. That could be the difference. Emeka Egbuka was great, right, on Sunday, but if Tez Johnson doesn't do what he does on Sunday, I don't know if the Bucs win, right? He made a couple of very critical plays in that game. So moving the chains and everything. So, yeah, they're going to need some other guys to step up, because if Godwin can't go, obviously if Godwin is out there, they're still going to focus on Egbuka. But if Godwin can't go, it's even easier to sort of take Egbuka out of the game. And Robert Saleh back there as the 49ers DC is a really good defensive coordinator. So they're going to try and come up with ways to eliminate that option for Baker Mayfield, and they're going to have to find other ways to get guys open.
We're going to wrap it up this week with special teams. Is this the week that everything just goes according to plan? No haywire mistakes. I mean, we didn't get anything too awful last week.
Okay, besides the kick returns last week.
Right. All 3 phases. Are they going to come together this week, or are we just going to see? I have this awful vision, and I really want to avoid a doom and gloom, kind of tone for this episode. I feel bad for establishing that, but you got to take it for what it is. The Bucs are 4-1, playing another 4-1 team who has a quarterback who's playing well and is playing in an offense that has routinely given Todd Bowles problems. So I think the Bucs can win this game. And I think that in a lot of ways, as you had said at the top of the show, this is probably the best Bucs team. Even with the injuries, I think this is the best Bucs team the Niners have faced in a couple of years. And I don't know if I would say it's the worst Niners team, but I mean, I guess we'll see.
The Niners didn't even make the playoffs last year, so
right. So I guess that's yet to be determined. But I do think the Bucs are well equipped to win this game. Big part of that has become special teams, and we are paying more attention to special teams every week, which isn't necessarily a good thing. Like you said, last week wasn't catastrophic, but hopefully this week, I have this vision of like an opening drive kickoff return for a touch. You know what I mean? Like whoever they have back there returning kicks for San Francisco, it's gonna be some short guy. He'll be like the equivalent to Braxton Berrios with the Jets. You remember that game up in New York, the Antonio Brown game?
A big game.
He was terrible.
Or the Surreal Grayson game, however you look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a much better way to put it. The Surreal Grayson game. Special teams, my friend. How do we feel? Money Mac is back.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, hold my breath every time they go for a punt. Yeah, that's pretty much. I'm not even worried about the punt coverage. I'm worried about them getting the punt off. Like I'm not. If you could block a kickoff, I think I'd be worried about that. Like they just every time it feels like teams are, even when they don't get there, it seems like they're like, oh my god, it was so close. So hopefully, don't have any special teams, especially again like. You're able to survive because you didn't have the massive blunder last week, right? Like, yes, you gave up some kick return yards, but like none of it went for a touchdown. You didn't have a blocked punt. You didn't have a blocked field goal. Like, you didn't have those big ones, right? You've avoided those, which was an issue, right, in the past weeks. Obviously McLaughlin made all of his kicks, in his flu game. But you're going to need that again this week, right? Because again, San Francisco is a really good team, and you can't be giving away points, right? So like McLaughlin's going to need to make his kicks. Special teams, you're going to need to tighten it up, right? You're also not going to be able to give San Francisco like short field after short field after short field, like because they're going to capitalize, and it's going to be a long day for your defense. So hopefully the special teams unit can. They were okay last week, besides those return yards pretty much. Hopefully you can replicate that and just clean up the return coverage a little bit more.
28-25 Bucs. I don't know how the hell San Francisco manages 25 points, but it just feels like one of those games. We're going to have some weird play somewhere, and it's going to establish a weird final score. But I think the Bucs have what it takes to win this game. I say 28. And that feels a little generous because, the initial score I wanted to give, honestly, was Bucs 20, San Fran 17. Because
I don't think they're holding San Francisco 17.
No?
Just 2 touchdowns and a field goal? I don't think so.
Yeah, you might be right. You're probably right. You're more than likely right. So
you don't think they are. You have San Francisco getting 25.
Exactly. I got 25-28. So I do think the Buccaneers can extend their record to 5-1. We started the show with a lot of injury talk, and I think that a win here can put a lot of that at ease because I think the rush to get these guys back is certainly not what it is when you have beaten some of the better teams in the NFC, when you have beaten a Seattle. If you beat a San Francisco, it's not going to feel as brutal to potentially drop a game to Detroit if you're not rushing guys back. But the fact that the Bucs are beating the teams that they have with the players that they have is also a testament to, I think, where they are right now and how they are better than what has faced San Francisco in years past. So I am excited to see how this one turns out. I am hopeful that the Buccaneers can win. We are hopeful that Luke Goedeke will play at some point this season. How do you feel, Evan?
Yeah, so before I get into it, I wanted to share, because I noticed it for the first time against Philly. And then after the Seattle game, I was like, huh. So I went back and looked. And I am, by the way, I'm 5-0 on predictions this year. I'm picking Bucs games, just winners, losers. But a little bit more into that, not necessarily the exact scores, but I am very close each week on how much the Bucs win or lose by. So, week 1, I predicted the Bucs to win by 3. The Bucs did win by 3. I predicted the Bucs to win by and which, by the way, I predicted the Bucs to win by 3 a lot. So like, gotta get off that snide a little bit. Gotta get a little bit more creative here. All right. But I predicted the Bucs to win by 3 against Houston. The Bucs won by 2. I predicted the Bucs to win by 3 against the Jets. The Bucs won by 2. I predicted the Bucs to lose by 7 to the Eagles. The Bucs lost by 6. And then I predicted the Bucs to win by 3 against Seattle, and they won by 3 against Seattle. So not only am I perfect so far, but like it's been like crazy close. Like the deficits, I guess you could say. So I think this game is close, and I do think this is like the best chance the Bucs have to beat the 49ers, like in recent memory. Like the best chance I feel about it. Like 2022, like that team was obviously dead. So like whatever. 2023 didn't really know, sort of, still trying to figure out everything. The Bucs didn't really hit their stride yet. 2024, they were without Evans, Godwin. I just thought the 49ers were a better team. So, like, those times I was like, yeah, like, okay. Like the 49ers are going to win. This time I'm not that confident, right? Like, I think the Bucs could legitimately win this game. It would not shock me in one way or another. Partially because of the 49ers injury, sure. But the Bucs injuries also, right? It sort of evens itself out almost. And unfortunately, though, I do think that San Francisco is going to take this game. Couple reasons. One, I think the injuries that the Bucs have are at pretty critical spots. Like, I worry about Zion McCollum not being able to go. I worry about Benjamin Morrison not going. Jacob Parrish, like, he played his worst. I understand he's a rookie. He's been really good. But he played his worst game of the year last year when he wasn't in the same spot, right? That nickel corner spot. I worry about that, right? I worry about what Kyle Shanahan can draw up for Christian McCaffrey, even though the Bucs try to shut him down. I worry about Mac Jones, who's playing really good football. And also on offense. Like, I just worry if the Bucs can consistently move the ball down the field if Chris Godwin can't go. Hopefully he can, and I think it does help if he can. And I think this game is going to be really close, but I do have San Francisco winning. I'm going to say that San Francisco is going to win 26-21. They're going to beat the Bucs. Bucs drop to 4-2. Not the end of the world, but I think that's why I think winning last week was so important, because tough road game against a good team in Seattle, and just felt like there was a lot of ways that could have gone south, right? And if you lose that game, then you lose this game, all of a sudden you're 3-0 start. You have 3 straight losses there, right? So it was important to bounce back. But I think it's a close game. I think the Bucs fight hard. They're obviously never going to give up. We know that about them. But I just think San Francisco, the coaching advantage. And again, until I see Todd Bowles beat Kyle Shanahan, I have a hard time picking Todd Bowles to beat Kyle Shanahan.
I cannot co-sign with you, but I wish you luck. I mean, I don't. I obviously hope that the Buccaneers emerge victorious.
Yeah, I want to be wrong as well. That would be fine.
Feels like this has to be the time. I don't know. It does in a lot of ways. If it isn't, it's obviously not the end of the world. We still have plenty of football left to play, but I think that this is another measuring stick game in the NFC to see truly how good the Bucs are when they go head-to-head with a lot of teams that many people consider the front runners. I mean, the record speaks for itself right now, both teams sitting at 4-1. So you already lost the head-to-head to Philly. They're going to have that on you for the rest of the regular season. You got some big games here against San Francisco and Detroit. So hopefully some statement games for the Bucs. And in the way that I look at it, last week's performance, the way they won that game, I know they kind of got lucky with the interception, but playmakers make plays, man, and that's the nature of the NFL.
You have to be lucky at some point. I mean,
right, you do, and I'm glad that the Buccaneers were, but they win that game in that fashion, a very, very much a gut check game. I feel good about where they are. I feel cautiously optimistic, but we'll have to see if these injuries are too much for them to overcome yet again, because they've been doing it week in and week out and week in at this point. We're talking every week, the injury is going to be too much. And they certainly have not been outside of that Philadelphia game. And that Philadelphia game was very much competitive down to the last minute. Like you said, they're competitive. They're going to fight. They're going to make it fun. And I hope that's what we get. Sunday, 4:25 p.m. Buccaneers host the San Francisco 49ers. We are going to try our best to be live on YouTube right after the game, youtube.com/cannonfirepodcast. Subscribe to the channel for more great Buccaneers content. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. You can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_Daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Check out his written work, BucsNation.com. What have you got this week?
Yeah, going to have the X Factor out, which not going to reveal who it is, but we did talk about them on this show. So I'm going to have that out for this week. So sort of like what player, right, needs to step up for the Buccaneers to win. What player or positional group. Sometimes I do a positional group. So going to have that out on BucsNation.com. And then also on the Cannon Fire Podcast YouTube channel. If you're listening on audio, we appreciate you listening on audio. But if you do want just a little bit more content, check out the Cannon Fire Podcast YouTube channel. We have Bang the Bucs coming out yet again. Like I said, was going to have Chris Godwin anytime touchdown. Might have to keep an eye on the injury report. That might be subject to change. We'll see. And also what players to watch out before the game as well. After the game on Monday, whether it's a victory Monday, whether it's a loss, going to have best and worst from that game. So if you guys are just looking for a little bit more content throughout the week, stay tuned to the Cannon Fire Podcast YouTube channel.
Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. And please check out the Rondé Barber Show. We got a really cool episode this week. 49ers general manager and Tampa Bay Buccaneer legend John Lynch is on the show, breaking down all things Bucs versus Niners. Very cool to get that kind of perspective because, not only is it a guy that Rondé played with, but he's a GM of an NFL team.
I think he knows the 49ers pretty well.
Yeah, so. Maybe. It was pretty cool, too, because he did the episode from inside of his office, and behind him, he's got a couple of helmets in display, and he has San Francisco on the bottom, the Buccaneers in the middle, and then Denver up on top. Who would have thought? No Patriots helmet because he was only there for a cup of coffee. But
did he play a regular season game with the Patriots?
I don't believe he did. I think he got cut before the start of the season, and
Gotcha.
I want to say that may have been it for him. But was a Pro Bowler 2 separate times with the Denver Broncos. So John Lynch, man, Pro Football Hall of Famer. Great conversation between two Hall of Famers on this week's Rondé Barber Show. We will talk to you guys on Sunday after the game. We appreciate you listening to us and hanging out with us live. Have a great weekend. Keep it posted here for more Buccaneer content. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signed off from my co-host, Evan Wanish. We will talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.